the Industrial Revolution, the ocean has absorbed roughly 1/4 of the carbon dioxide produced by burning fuels. Scientists once thought this beneficial. After all, that carbon dioxide would otherwise accelerate global warming. But what happens when so much carbon dioxide, 22 million tons of it each day, mixes with ocean water? In terms of chemistry, the answer is simple. It becomes an acid.
The process of ocean acidification is complex. It models both the science and societal aspects of the issue and involve consideration of atmospheric carbon dioxide uptake. The large quantity of surface water area, mainly composed of oceans, has allowed the Earth's atmospheric carbon dioxide level to remain low when compared to the atmosphere of Venus, which is relatively the same composition of planet Earth in size, except it's Venus and not Earth. Throughout the history of the planet, this neutralization or absorption of CO2 has fueled the shell marine environment. As carbon dioxide is absorbed, it enters the carbonic acid cycle and eventually becomes a carbonate used to make shells of marine organisms. The uptake of carbon dioxide as it enters the carbonic acid cycle produces acids that inevitably lower the pH of the oceans and increasing the overall acidity. Human pollution has significantly raised the amount of atmospheric carbon dioxide from pre-industrial levels of 280 parts per million to levels in 2007 which reached 384 parts per million. And this rate is only expected to increase with time and increased fossil fuel burning. Thus, this increase in pollution has driven the increased uptake of carbon dioxide in oceans, which is directly related to ocean acidification.
It happens as humans burn fossil fuels. Carbon dioxide is released into the atmosphere and absorbed by the oceans, 22 million metric tons every day. The water turns more corrosive to everything from shellfish to coral reefs that many species depend on.
Remember that the elevated CO2 levels in the atmosphere have caused more carbon dioxide to be dissolved into the oceans. This leads to lower levels of calcium carbonate levels in the ocean, as well as lowering the pH. There are two species of bivalves, the edible mussel and the Pacific oyster, that are quite common to mankind. Studies have grown to show that by the end of the century, shell calcification could decline as much as 25% for the edible shell and 10% for the Pacific oyster.
A third of the carbon dioxide released into the atmosphere every day, much of it from burning fossil fuels, is absorbed by the world's oceans. There, it mixes with seawater and forms carbonic acid, shifting the pH balance. Those, more acidic waters, make it difficult for shell-producing organisms like the oyster to produce their shells and begin life.
On top of that, there's a very good chance that aragonite will become undersaturated in the oceans as well. It is actually estimated that aragonite will become unsaturated in the ocean as soon as 2016. Shelled petropods, such as the species L. helicina, have their shells made out of aragonite. When the oceans become unsaturated, members of the Helicina will need to put up more effort into calcifying their shells. On top of just adding to undersaturation, lowering the pH levels of the ocean will cause there to be no more dissolution of petropod shells. This means that not only will the species require more energy to create their shells, they will also need to fight off the dissolution of their shells due to the increased acidity. Helicina is an important part of the food chain, being right near the bottom as food for many smaller carnivores in the ocean. If the partial pressure of carbon dioxide levels get high enough, let's say to 765 atmospheres, estimated for the end of the century, calcification rate has been shown to drop dramatically. Lower calcification rates could easily lead to the increase in predation because it will be easier to kill the petropods. There is also a major group of photosynthetic organisms called coccolithophores, which have a calcium carbonate shell. With the eventual destruction of the coccolithophore shells could lead to higher death rates, and the bottom of the food chain often dies off. That could easily lead to the mass extinctions in the ocean due to starvation, which is inevitably caused by the ocean acidification.
The ocean, after all, is resilient. Given the chance and enough time, it can heal itself. So how can we give the ocean that chance?